Welcome back, true believers. Welcome back, Geek Show fans. It's time for another exciting and probably depressing deep dive into the Last of Us TV show.
Y'all, I do have to tell you, after last week's episode, so after episode 2, I went and I played more of the video game to try to get further ahead, and it was so depressing. I set down my controller, and my husband looked at me and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No." And I have not played since. And so now I understand why people have not finished this game.
Boost your mic settings a little bit, Rebecca. Sorry.
Oh, what do you mean we didn't do testing and I didn't preemptively do it?
I'm sorry.
It's bummer game. We'll call it bummer game.
So that's the thing is this series, and we've talked about this a little bit on the previous deep dive. Amazing storytelling is top of its class. Gameplay is great, not amazing, but it serves the storytelling purpose very, very well. And
yeah, I will say episode 2 of The Last of Us, not enough time spent looting rooms and crafting chips.
Yes, okay.
Because the whole time I felt
we're gonna get to that. Yes,
I feel like we're not doing anything that we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing.
The show has drawn a fan, and if I were anybody on this show, I would be so tickled by the fan that this show has garnered.
Who's that?
Dr. Paul Stamets, the world's most premier mycologist.
Oh, really?
And namesake of Paul Stamets from Star Trek Discovery. Literally, like if you are a mycology nerd, you watch Paul Stamets because this dude knows his mushrooms. And
yeah, in Discovery, mushrooms are good things.
Yeah. So, and he flat out said,
in my everyday life, mushrooms are a good thing.
He said he's blown away by the set design. He's blown away by everything by it. No cordyceps cannot, under any circumstance, ever infect people. And that actually the future is a union with people and mushrooms, which is what I say.
Yeah.
That's what a clicker in human form would say.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's what they would say in Mario Land. Where is it that Mario lives?
Mushroom Kingdom.
Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah.
That sounds like something the Mushroom King would say.
Mushroom Kingdom propaganda. That's what that is.
So it's like for a few minutes, I was like, yeah, I hear you, Dr. Paul Stamets. I'm feeling a lot better. And then I thought, oh, no, the mushrooms got him and they're making him talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, the sometimes you just got to take a break. Well, it's a good thing this show is once a week and not all at once because
I have a friend who she's saving it to binge, and I'm like,
don't do it.
Do not, please.
I messaged Rebecca right after the second episode, and I said my teeth hurt because I realized I was clenching my teeth so hard while
you get a butt workout because you're clenching that butthole the whole time. Too.
It's like it's an anal workout. Keep that anus sphincter tight.
What's Kegels but for your butthole?
Exactly. Yes, that thing.
Are we gonna get demonetized?
Nah.
No.
We're good. All right. So
where do we begin?
Go ahead, Kerry. Yeah, I was going to say we start with we left episode 1 with they finally got out of the QZ, or no, they're in the QZ. They escaped to the QZ from Boston, and the episode starts with them sitting in an abandoned building.
And Ellie is sleeping like a little baby fawn in a nice grass, in a nice little sunlit grass, and then it zooms out, and then you see Pedro Pascal and Tess like guns.
Sitting there with a gun,
like just waiting to kill her.
But
that's Thursdays around here.
Just Thursday. Hey, I forgot. Before we got to that, though, we got another really awesome look at before the outbreak, and in Jakarta. And guess what? You were 100% right, Rebecca. The flower. Well done. So
you
yeah,
all are
it's
welcome.
A mycologist that teaches at one of the universities there gets basically dragged to this black book facility.
Don't vacillate with your facilities.
Okay, I'll try not to.
Good wordplay.
And basically shows they show her the first couple of people that have been infected that they've been able to capture after killing them, obviously. But
my favorite part.
Scene. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say this scene. My favorite part was after all of the tests and everything are done, and the guy from the army or whatever it is sits down and says, "Well, what should we do? You're the expert in this area. What do we do?" And
What's the cure?
silent for the longest time, and then looks right at him and says, "Bomb it
everything.
all."
And it was amazing
destroy
'cause
everything.
The setup to that was her saying she looked like she was still like maybe, and then she finds out 17 people got bit
Yeah.
and they're not accounted for, and then she's like, "Yeah, we
Yep.
got to bomb everything." That's
Well, and she even tries to do just the littlest bit of contact tracing too. She's like, "Well, who bit this person?" And they say, "We don't know."
Yeah,
It's
I
so
don't
no.
know.
okay, well,
Yeah.
there's
Game over.
Game over,
Well,
man.
And then the best part of that scene was at the end. She says, "I'd like to go and spend time with my family now."
Yeah, it wasn't
I just-
even.
It was just like, she knows this is it. We're all
Yeah.
we're all
She said
screwed.
there's no
and-
part of her that's like, "I'm going to stay and help the future recovery
Yeah.
effort." She's like, "I'm probably infected.
there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, these things
It's too late.
spore.
Yeah.
So yeah, just another bone-chilling scene.
Yeah.
Even more so than the beginning of the first episode when they interviewed the guys on the TV in the '60s.
Yeah.
So then,
I'm definitely gonna sound like a broken record about this. Listen to the podcast because they do go into more detail about the choice to add in these beginning like cold open scenes because they have this up within the game. You don't really have the opportunity to get into the history of it, but within
Yeah.
the show, you're given that opportunity to really expand on the origin of this thing.
yes,
And it's really just fascinating to talk
They
to.
also
And I am gonna say listen to the podcast at least 3 more times.
They also did a really smart thing with Ellie at the very beginning of this episode too, where she starts throwing out some of the more outlandish things from the game, like, "Oh, does this exist? Do they explode into spores? Do they do this or that?" Because
Yeah.
there are people who are being, shall we say, those geeks who are like, "Well, they didn't spore. They don't have this. They don't have that." And it's like,
Me.
Watch the game and then try and or watch the show and try and enjoy it. But
In the podcast,
Here we go.
they left that in, thinking that would be enough explanation of how the clickers worked for the general audience. But then somebody had seen it and was like, "You're gonna need to explain yourselves more. This is not enough for the general dumb audience," and that's why they added the very tender and gross thing at the very end.
Oh my goodness. Whoa. Yeah, we'll get to that. So yeah, it's just we finally get a better look at the city, at the ruined city, the QZ, and that scene when they come out on top after that interesting conversation. Do we go the short way or the long way? Well, you might as well change those names to the alive way and the dead way,
Right.
basically.
I'm
And
just
they
glad Boston finally got its own leaning tower.
Hey,
Finally,
they've been wanting one for years. It's
they've been
common
looking
knowledge.
at Pisa for decades.
Yeah, 92,
Holy
the Mighty
fuck.
Mighty Bosstones actually put out a song called "Where's Our Leaning Tower."
Thank you. Thank you for that callback.
They start to go into the kind of how the cordyceps fungus works with the hosts, and they talk about the feelers and the tendrils.
Yep.
And then they do this awesome scene where they're up on like the 4th floor of a building, and you look out and see a pile of clickers and infected just laying there on the ground. They look like they've been taken out of it, but they're writhing. And
Yeah.
then you
Like
see
a pile of maggots.
and you see the sun come across them, and the sun apparently does affect them because they start writhing in the
They
sun.
don't like it. They do
don't
not like
it. They don't like it.
But
Well,
they also introduced the concept of they are connected through a network. They're connected through a network that we're not even aware of. So you could step on a thing a mile away, and it alerts the clickers in somewhere else in town, so
Exactly.
they know where it, which is such a cool addition. I thought it was so
Yeah.
smart.
You guys are talking about all this zombie stuff, and you didn't even touch on the coolest thing in the entire episode:
Which is?
piano playing frog.
Oh, wow.
He shows up, and immediately the first thing out of my mouth is, "Oh my god, I love him."
Yeah, there's like this. The most cliched thing in the world is the tense piano sting in a
Yep.
horror movie soundtrack, and then we find out it's actually played by a frog's butt.
You expected that frog to stand up and start going, "Hello, my baby. Hello, my
Hello, my
honey.
darling."
Hello, my ragtime gal."
Especially being that original frog in the original cartoon is actually dead. Yes, I was
What?
expecting that.
Yep.
He's in a box.
Well, but he's alive.
dead.
He's only
frogs.
playing dead.
He's a magic
He's
frog.
Schrodinger's.
Let's get back to the show. Come on.
That was a really cool scene, though, when they go into the hotel, because you get to see the difference between someone who lived through the end of the world and someone who was born after the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
She's fascinated by this stuff and what the hotel was like when it was up and running, and they're just like, this is a dangerous place. We need to move.
Right.
They even drop some lines from the game, like, "Oh, did you ever stay in a place like this?" And I think Joel says, "No, it's too rich for my blood." And
Yep.
I know in the game he's like, "Oh, I miss coffee. Like I would do anything."
He
for
says that
coffee.
a bunch of times in the game, yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can't remember
it's-
if he said it in the show.
So they finally decide, okay, we're gonna go the long route, but they get to where they need to go, and things have fallen down and gotten worse than the last time they were there. And so that's in the hotel. And they finally get past that and start heading towards the Capitol building, and everything seems like it's going really well until they get to the Capitol building, and hey, that's the truck that we're supposed to get in and head out of here. Oh, there's blood all over it.
Well, also in the museum on our way to the Capitol
I've
building.
totally skipped over the
You're
museum.
good. You're good. That's why we're here.
gosh.
It's our first experience with the clickers, and so this is our introduction to the clickers. No, don't, Tony.
What?
It's too scary. It's too scary.
The clickers are so well done.
Well, and the
And-
reason I like them so much is because, let me beat Rebecca to it. As they said in the podcast, if we
Did you listen to the
introduce,
podcast?
there are no other podcasts. If we
Whoa.
introduce them, first as a CGI character, it just wouldn't have the impact.
Yeah.
Luckily, they were able to find actors who could mimic the
Oh my gosh.
the way that they move.
Contort.
They were fans of the game and were able to assimilate these sounds, even though they remixed them later, obviously. But these are physical makeup. This is all hard effects.
And it
So-
looks fantastic.
Yes.
It looks
so good.
so good.
Well, and I was going to say, one of the things that I really liked that we touched on earlier is that they're showing the origins of the outbreak. And they don't do that in the game. I think in the game they were trying to go for more of a Walking Dead vibe, where you never find out whatever the
It just-
origin of the zombie
it just
outbreak is.
Is what it is.
Just is what it is. But now they've decided to go into that, and it's just so good. And the practical effects, phenomenal. The museum, though, this is straight out of the game.
Well, and I love what they've done too, because in the game, on your way to the Capitol, you are supposed to traverse your way through a collapsed building, and that's your first introduction to the clickers, and then you get to the Capitol, and within the Capitol, there's a museum of Boston. So what they've done is replace the leaning building with a museum, so you still get that like museum-y vibe, but then you go to the Capitol, and the Capitol is just like over in an instant, pretty much.
Yeah. So in the Capitol, they find the truck. Truck's just basically the truck's still whole, but there's no humans anywhere. And then they start finding the bodies, and they get into the Capitol. There's all the bodies of all the Fireflies they were supposed to meet and get out with. They're all dead, and they just assume basically someone was infected.
Now,
It's such a good misdirect too, because when they got out of the museum, you're pretty convinced that Tess, she's acting really skittish,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, she got infected, because she's like, you guys go ahead, go across this rickety bridge. I'm going to get my bearings together, and I was like, oh,
Well,
she's infected, and
She
then
says she rolled her ankle, basically.
yeah, and then I'm like, oh, okay, she's fine, because she goes to the Capitol with them, and then no, she's not.
yeah.
Well, and if you played the game, as soon as they get out of that museum, I was watching it with a friend, and I'm like, oh, she bit. This girl bit. Like,
Yeah.
we know it's coming. This girl
Yeah.
bit.
Now, the way that she goes down, I thought was very heroic. There's some kind of controversy about it that I don't understand.
What?
Yeah, about the kiss. It was for some reason people are freaking out about that, and I don't know why. But
Because
you know.
people don't understand the concept of love, and well, you laugh in the podcast. They talk about how this things in this story are just like in real life, things are motivated by either love or by fear, and things that are trying to spread and become the dominant species, they are going to act out of a love, and that's what this kiss kind of represents. not that transmission doesn't have to be aggressive. Transmission
So
can be a
anybody
tender
who
moment.
knows a goddamn thing about transmissible disease knows that you go for the mucous membranes.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, yeah.
Anything sporing, any virus, anything goes straight for the mucous membranes. So what is this?
My
I
mouth.
figured they looked at it, or the thing that got her looked at. Hey, that's a big hole. I bet I can put a lot of stuff in there.
Well, but her death was so heroic. She
Yep.
she just did such a, I mean, spraying the gas everywhere, finding those hand grenades, which
Yep.
I would have said, "Hey, come back, and get some hand grenades before you go." But
Yeah,
you
throw
know,
a few there. You're going to need
loot
these.
the room before you leave.
always. If we learn anything from video games, it's
Exactly.
that loot the
gotta
room
loot.
before you tear it up.
Gotta loot.
But it was just such a great scene. And now, as far as the end of this episode, because we got to wrap this up.
Yep.
How is it following the game, and how far into the game are we?
So we're still pretty early on into the game, maybe like 1/8 of a way into the game, 1/6 of a way into the game. Because now Tess has said, hey, get her to Bill and Frank's and they'll handle it. And so the next section, which is going to be episode 3, and I'm actually really excited to see because
Yes.
you're going to be introduced to Bill, played by Nick Offerman. And in the game, there's some heartbreaking stuff that you learn about Bill and Frank and their relationship.
Yep.
And it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to be mean and expose some harsh truths about their
Yeah.
relationship. But the show looks like it's going to delve deeper into Bill and Frank's relationship and really give that story some life. So I'm really excited to see it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it got announced that it's season 2 is confirmed. But the thing that blew my mind is they said, Neil Druckmann said that season 2 will focus mainly on the Last of Us Part 2. So that means they're going to go pretty much all through the first game in the first
Yeah.
season, which leads me to believe, are they going to be done after season 2? Is this
I don't know. The quote that he said is, "I don't like filler episodes,"
It shows.
which I wanted to say,
Love it.
you're on television.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It
Yeah.
has to happen.
If you want to
Well,
stretch
I
it
don't
out,
think
it's got to happen.
I don't think it has to happen though. I think we're because this season is only 9 episodes, right? Which is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of in a fun era of television where like, hey, you don't need filler and
all the
HBO in
story.
particular. Because remember, HBO offered the Game of Thrones guys as many episodes as they wanted. And
That
they
didn't-
said, no, we're
Yeah.
good. But I think
Ugh.
because HBO also did the same thing with these guys and said, hey, whatever you want to do, however long you want to make it, however short you want to make it, like just go for it. And
Yep.
we can be picky about how we present stories.
I think
Yeah.
money will win out because this is one of the few things that HBO has that is succeeding. So,
And
That
succeeding
they haven't
in a big
canceled
way.
yet.
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
All right. I think that wraps it up for this episode. Just once more, phenomenal stuff. Second episode, I give another 10 out of 10. I can't wait to see where this goes. I've never seen something done so well.
I never thought I'd love a zombie show again. You
Yeah.
know, I got so
Oh.
tired of Walking Dead, and then this came along and went, yay.
Yeah.
My mom's even
Walking-
watching it, and my mom
Really?
doesn't like scary things.
My
Yeah,
wife
my-
loves
just-
it. Yeah,
My Walking Dead just didn't know when to go away.
exactly. That was the
Yeah.
problem.
Still.
It
Yeah.
became The Walking Dead. Wah, wah, wah.
Literally.
And it's still.
Yeah. My wife tapped out after the first episode. She's like, you can finish watching this one yourself. It's really good, but I can't handle it.
Yeah, I seriously, if
So,
you're depressed, I
stay
wouldn't,
away from it.
Yeah, I wouldn't go near it.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week for episode 3 Deep Dive. Thanks again for tuning in and watching with us, and we'll see you.
Click away.
Writing.